The first thing I noticed was the silence on my phone. No vibration, no answered calls. I was an Omega, 22, and my life ran on schedules, agreements, and the comfort of being able to reach the one woman who always said she would never let me fall. Her name was Selene Vale, a female alpha with a voice like velvet wrapped around steel. She owned the Vale Group, the biggest corporate pack in the city, and she owned the room every time she walked into it. She did not own me, not officially, not on paper, not by bond mark, because she insisted we had to be careful. After the board approves the expansion, she'd whisper against my temple, "Then I'll claim you in daylight." It was a promise I swallowed like medicine. It was also the lie that kept me warm when her world turned cold. That morning, I stood outside the 42nd floor boardroom, staring at the frosted glass that read, Vale Pack Holdings. Inside, voices moved like knives. I checked my phone again. No response to my 5 calls. No response to my message that said I was being followed from the subway. No response to my last text, sent with shaking fingers, that said, "I can smell a rival alpha near the building." My heat cycle was not due, my suppressants were stable, and still my Omega instincts screamed. Something was wrong. I pressed my palm to the glass. The security scanner blinked red. My access had been revoked. I laughed once, sharp and small, because disbelief is what the body does before panic takes over. The door opened anyway because Selene's assistant, Marin, slipped out with a tablet clutched to her chest. Marin was beta, polished, unshakable, and right now her eyes would not meet mine. "Mira," she said quietly. My name sounded like an apology. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice level the way Selene taught me. Marin's jaw tightened. "Ms. Vale says you're not to enter." I stared at her. "That's not funny." "It's not a joke," Marin said, and then she added the part that made my stomach drop. "She says you should go home and wait for instructions." Home was a penthouse Selene owned, a gilded cage in the sky, with soft sheets and silent locks. Instructions was what you gave staff, not the Omega you kissed in the dark. "Let me talk to her," I said. Marin shook her head once, crisp as a stamp. "They're voting," she whispered, and her voice lowered further. "They're angry about the leak." The leak. I felt the floor tilt. 2 nights ago, Selene and I had been in her private office after hours. She had held me against the window, city lights below us like a sea of knives, and she'd showed me a contract on her screen. A merger agreement with the Crow Pack. A non-aggression deal disguised as corporate partnership. A clause that said Vale would transfer protective custody of an unbonded Omega asset in exchange for a clean vote. I remembered going cold in her arms. I remembered her whisper, "It's a draft, Mira. It will never happen." I remembered believing her because my heart was naive, and my Omega scent had already learned her name. "Tell her I'm here," I said again, louder. Marin swallowed. "She knows." The boardroom door opened behind Marin, and the sound that poured out was laughter. Not warm laughter, bored laughter. The kind that says someone is bleeding and everyone is relieved it's not them. Then Selene stepped into the hallway. She was in a charcoal suit, her black hair pinned back, her throat bare of any mark that would tie her to me. Her eyes found mine immediately, and for one flicker of a second, the alpha in her looked like the woman who used to tuck my hair behind my ear when I was anxious. Then her face shut like a vault. "Mira," she said, as if we were strangers who shared a calendar. My chest tightened. Why is my access revoked? I asked. Selene's gaze slid past me, to the corridor cameras, to the guards, to Marin's tight posture, and then back to my face. Because you are a liability, she said, clearly, loudly, each word placed like a brick. My throat went dry. I waited for the wink, the secret softness, the private signal that told me this was performance. It didn't come. The board members filed out behind her, a river of tailored suits and sharp perfume. Selene's mother, Octavia Vale, stopped to look me up and down like I was a stain. Is that the Omega? She asked Selene, not me. Selene didn't answer her mother with anger. She answered with silence, which was worse. Octavia's mouth curved. Pretty, she said, but pretty doesn't belong in boardrooms. My hands curled into fists at my sides. Selene's jaw flexed once. She could have ended it with one sentence. She could have said, "She's mine. Watch your mouth." Instead, she said, "She's no one." The hallway went quiet. Even Marin stopped breathing. I heard my own pulse like a war drum. Selene stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear, but her eyes stayed cold. "Go home," she murmured. "Selene," I whispered, and the Omega in me cracked open on her name. Her nostrils flared, like she caught my scent, and it hurt. Then she turned, and she walked away with her board, leaving me standing in a corridor full of cameras and strangers, and the taste of humiliation like metal on my tongue. I didn't cry. Not yet. I did the thing I always did when my world shifted. I made a plan. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the lobby button, and watched my reflection in the mirrored doors. My eyes looked too big. My mouth looked too calm. The doors opened on the ground floor, and the lobby smelled like expensive flowers and threat. I felt her before I saw her. A rival alpha's presence is not subtle. It presses into the air like a storm warning. I turned, and there she was near the security desk, leaning like she belonged. Vesper Crow, female alpha, Crow Pack. The rumored architect of hostile takeovers and broken bonds. She wore a white coat over a dark dress, and she looked like she'd walked out of a headline. Her eyes met mine with lazy certainty. "Mira," she said, like she'd been waiting for me all day. My skin prickled. "Don't say my name!" I snapped, but my voice shook anyway. Vesper smiled slightly, and it wasn't friendly. "It's loud in here," she said, glancing at the cameras. "Let's talk somewhere safer." "I'm not going anywhere with you," I said. Vesper's gaze flicked to my wrist, where my phone sat in my hand like a weak weapon. "She didn't answer," Vesper murmured, and she inhaled once, slow and deep. "You smell like her, though." Anger flared hot in my stomach. "Leave me alone." Vesper's smile vanished. She took one step closer, and the air thickened around me. "You're being watched," she said quietly. "By who?" I demanded. Vesper's eyes slid to the valet entrance. 2 men stood there, not pack staff, not hotel guests. Too still, too alert. My spine went rigid. "Those aren't male security," I whispered. "No," Vesper agreed, and her voice turned sharp. "Those are mercenaries." My phone finally buzzed. A message from Selene. One line. "Do not leave the building." My breath hitched. Vesper saw the screen. She laughed, soft as a knife sliding free. "She's late," Vesper said. Stay back, I warned, backing toward the crowd near the concierge. But the mercenaries moved, not fast, professional, closing angles. The lobby noise suddenly sounded far away, like my body had dipped underwater. My Omega instinct screamed, "Run!" I turned toward the revolving doors. One of the men stepped into my path. A hand reached for my elbow. Before he touched me, Vesper moved. She didn't throw a punch. She didn't make it dramatic. She simply stepped between us, and the man froze as if he'd been warned by something older than fear. Vesper's voice dropped into a lethal calm. "Touch her," she said, "and I'll have your contract revoked before your next breath." The man hesitated. His gaze flicked to her insignia ring, to the silent Crow security now appearing like shadows behind her. My heart hammered. Vesper turned her head slightly toward me. "Now," she said. A hand wrapped around my wrist from behind. I yelped and spun, but it was not a mercenary. It was a woman in a veil uniform, a junior guard I recognized, eyes wide with panic. "Mira," she whispered. "Ms. Vale said—" The mercenaries lunged again. Everything snapped into chaos. Bodies moved, shouts rose, glass shattered somewhere, sharp and bright. Vesper's grip tightened on my wrist. "Safety," she said, and then she pulled. I stumbled after her, adrenaline drowning thought. We didn't go through the front doors. We went through a service corridor, past laundry carts and staff stairwells, the building's polished skin peeling back into its bones. I fought her. I tried to twist free. She didn't even flinch. "You're kidnapping me," I hissed. Vesper glanced back, her eyes cold and steady. "I'm saving you," she replied. "If you're here for drama like this, subscribe to Alpha Files." We burst out into the underground parking garage. A black SUV waited with its engine running. The back door was open like a mouth. My stomach turned. "No," I said, digging my heels in. Vesper leaned close enough that her breath hit my ear. "You can die on this concrete," she murmured, "or you can live long enough to find out why your alpha just disowned you in public." My heart stopped for half a beat. The words hit harder than her grip. "Disowned you in public." I stared at my phone again. No further messages. No call. No explanation. Just that cold line, "Do not leave the building," after she already stripped me of belonging. I didn't want to get in, but the garage echoed with approaching footsteps. The mercenaries had found another route. Vesper shoved me into the SUV, not gently, not cruelly, just efficiently. The door slammed. Child lock clicked. The car surged forward. I lurched against the seat, breath ragged, hands trembling. Vesper climbed in beside me, composed like this was a board meeting. She didn't touch me again. That was worse. It meant she believed she didn't have to. We rose into daylight, the city flashing by, and I realized I had just vanished from Selene's reach without her permission, or with it. I stared at Vesper. "If I scream," I said, voice shaking, "I'll make sure everyone knows what you did." Vesper's mouth curved. "Go ahead," she said. "You'll sound like an Omega in panic, and they'll call you unstable." My throat tightened with fury. She watched me with clinical interest, like she was studying a weapon she intended to use. "You're scared," she observed. "I'm angry," I corrected. Vesper nodded once. "Good," she said. "Anger keeps you alive." We drove for 40 minutes, not toward the Crow Tower downtown, not toward the Vale penthouse in the sky. toward the industrial edge of the city, where warehouses sat like sleeping monsters. The SUV entered a gated compound, scanned, approved, and rolled into a private garage. The doors shut behind us, sealing out the world. My pulse thudded in my ears. Vesper opened her door and stepped out, then came around to mine. She didn't yank me. She offered a hand, almost polite. I stared at it like it was a trap. "I can walk," I said. "I know," she replied, and she withdrew her hand like she didn't care. We moved through a corridor with clean white walls and silent cameras. A safe house. A prison dressed up as a sanctuary. A beta medic nodded at Vesper and glanced at me with sympathy she tried to hide. A scent diffuser hummed in the corner, pushing out neutralizing mist. My Omega senses hated it. It felt like being smothered. Vesper led me into a room with a couch, a table, a window that did not open, and a single door with a keypad lock. "So," I said, turning slowly, "this is where you keep your guests." Vesper sat in a chair across from me, crossing one leg over the other. "This is where I keep people alive," she said. I scoffed. "You expect me to believe you're my hero?" Vesper's eyes sharpened. "I'm not your hero," she said. "I'm your option." "What do you want?" I demanded. Vesper leaned forward slightly. "A signature," she said, as if it was nothing. My stomach sank. "I'm not signing anything." Vesper opened a folder on the table, slid out a document, and pushed it toward me. Not a mate contract. Not a bond claim. A protective custody order. The header read, "Vale Group Internal Asset Transfer." My hands went numb. My eyes scanned the clause that made bile rise in my throat. "Unbonded Omega asset Mira Halden is to be relocated under Crow Pack protection per partnership negotiation, pending board approval." There was a signature line at the bottom. Signed, Selene Vale. My vision blurred. "No," I whispered. Vesper watched me carefully. "She signed," Vesper said, "before she told you you were no one." I stared at the ink. The signature was hers. The sharp angle of the S, the decisive slash of the V. My chest felt like it cracked. "That's fake," I said, but it sounded weak. Vesper's voice softened by a fraction, which somehow made it worse. "It's real," she said. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. "Why would she do that?" I whispered. Vesper's eyes didn't blink. "Because your alpha is cornered," she said. "And cornered alphas trade what they think they can replace." I flinched as if slapped. Vesper continued, calm as snowfall. "The board wants a merger," she said. "Octavia wants control, and Crow wants leverage." "And I'm leverage," I said. "Yes," Vesper agreed. Rage surged through my blood like fire. I shoved the paper away. "I will not be traded," I said. Vesper nodded once, like she respected the sentence. "Then don't be," she said. I stared at her. "You just said you want a signature." "I want your consent," Vesper corrected. "Because consent makes the transfer clean." My laugh came out broken. "And if I don't consent?" Vesper's gaze turned colder. "Then you remain here until the threat is gone," she said. "The threat you conveniently won't name," I snapped. Vesper held my stare. "The threat is the mercenaries," she said, "hired by someone who wants you before the board vote finishes." My heart pounded. Who? I demanded. Vesper's mouth curved again, thin and sharp. Would it help if I said it wasn't me? She asked. I said nothing. Vesper stood, straightening her coat. Rest, she said. Eat, she added, and decide if you want to live. She walked to the door and keyed in a code. The lock clicked. Then she paused with her hand on the handle. One more thing, she said without turning. Your phone stays. My hand tightened around it reflexively. No, I said. Vesper looked back. Her eyes were not cruel. They were certain. You keep it, she said, and you'll call her, and she'll say nothing, and it will break you faster than any cage I build. My breath caught. Give it, Vesper repeated. My fingers trembled. I wanted to throw the phone at her face. Instead, I slid it across the table, because the worst part of being an Omega is knowing when you're outgunned. Vesper picked it up and slipped it into her pocket. Good, she said. And then she left, and the lock sealed behind her with a final, quiet click. I stood in the center of the room, staring at the document with Selene's signature, like it was a corpse. I pressed my palm to my chest to steady my breathing. My Omega instincts howled for my Alpha. My pride spat back, she's not yours. I paced. I checked the window again. It looked out onto a courtyard enclosed by high walls, topped with security wire. No way out. The air smelled neutral, stripped of personality. But beneath it, I caught the faintest trace of something floral and dark. Crow scent. I sank onto the couch, wrapped my arms around my knees, and forced my mind to work. If Selene signed, there were only two possibilities. She betrayed me, or she signed under threat and believed she could fix it later. Either way, she made the decision without me. Either way, I was the cost. I stared at the ceiling and felt the humiliation replay. Liability. No one. The words did not fade. They branded. I didn't cry. I sharpened. That night, a beta staffer brought food, water, and a small packet of suppressants. Are these mine? I asked, suspicious. She nodded quickly. Crow doesn't want you unstable, she whispered, eyes darting to the camera. She wants you clear. Why? I demanded. The beta swallowed. Because she thinks you're going to choose her, she said. My stomach turned. The staffer left. The lock clicked again. I ate because I needed strength. I slept because exhaustion is not bravery. In the dark, I remembered Selene's hands on my waist. I remembered her voice, promising daylight. I remembered how she always answered, until today. When I woke, the room felt tighter. My scent glands ached with a sharp, anxious pulse. I sat up fast, breathing hard. Heat. Not full, not spiraling, but the early warning. Stress triggered. My Omega body reacting to abandonment like it was a predator. I pressed my forehead to my knees. Not now, not here. I forced the suppressant down and waited for the edge to dull. Hours passed. No one came. Then, near evening, the door opened and Vesper walked in carrying a tablet. She looked perfectly calm, which made me want to scream. You slept, she said. I survived, I replied. Vesper sat across from me again, tablet in hand. I have news, she said. Let me guess, I spat. My Alpha is celebrating my disappearance. Vesper's eyes flicked up. Your Alpha is tearing her building apart, she said. My heart jolted. Vesper turned the tablet toward me. Security footage. Selene in the Veil lobby, coat off, sleeves rolled, hair undone, eyes feral. She had a guard by the collar. Even without audio, I could read her mouth. Where is she? Vesper watched my face closely. Looks like she didn't mean it, Vesper murmured. My throat tightened. Or she's angry she lost her asset, I said, forcing the words out. Vesper's mouth curved. Maybe, she said, but the scent trail she's tracking doesn't look like business. My chest ached. I hated that it mattered. I hated that hope still lived in me like a parasite. Vesper swiped to another clip. Octavia Vale at a press podium, speaking to cameras. A headline banner. Vale Group denies rumors of internal breach. Octavia's lips formed a smile that didn't touch her eyes. We have removed a compromised staff member, she said, for the safety of our pack. Compromised. Staff member. My hands shook. Vesper leaned back. Your alpha's mother just made you disposable, she said. I swallowed bile. And Selene let her. Vesper's gaze sharpened. That's the question, she said. Did she let her? I stared at the screen, at Octavia's smile, at the way power erases people with language. Something inside me clicked into place, cold and clean. I want out, I said. Vesper's eyes narrowed. Not possible, she replied. I want a deal, I corrected. Vesper's interest flared. I sat forward, forcing my voice steady. You have something on them, I said. Crow always has something, Vesper said. Then use it, I said, and I'll give you what you really want. Vesper tilted her head. And what do I really want? She asked. I stared her down. Control, I said. Leverage, I added. And a story where you're the savior alpha who rescued the Omega Veil discarded. Vesper's smile returned, slow and sharp. You're smarter than she deserves, she murmured. She said I was no one, I replied, voice like ice. Vesper leaned in. What do you want? She asked again, and this time she meant it. I inhaled, felt my Omega instincts tremble, and then I made the choice that tasted like blood. I want my revenge, I said. Vesper's eyes glinted. Against her? She asked. Against the system that thought it could trade me, I said. If Selene is part of that system, she'll bleed too. Vesper's smile widened. Now we're speaking the same language, she said. She slid the tablet aside and pulled the custody paper back toward me. Sign, she said softly, and I'll give you access. I stared at the document. Selene's signature stared back. My hand hovered. My heart screamed no. My pride whispered yes. I picked up the pen. I didn't sign my name. I wrote one word across the signature line in thick black ink. DURESS. Vesper blinked once, then she laughed, delighted. You really are an Omega built for war, she said. I'm an Omega built for survival, I corrected. Vesper tapped the paper thoughtfully. This gives me what I need, she said, and it gives you plausible deniability. Good, I said. Vesper rose. Follow me, she ordered. I stood, shoulders back, heart hammering. We moved through the safe house corridors, past cameras, past guards who watched me like I was a prize. Vesper led me into a control room filled with screens and files and quiet power. "Here's your world," she said, handing me a secure tablet. I stared at it. "What is this?" I asked. "Everything Octavia Vale has been hiding," Vesper replied. My breath hitched. On the screen were financial transfers, shell companies, and a list of payments labeled consulting. The recipient name made my stomach drop. Sterling Private Security. Not Crow. Not Vale. A third party. The Mercenaries. Vesper watched me read. "Octavia hired them," Vesper said, "to force Selene into signing the merger." I swallowed hard. "So Selene signed to protect the company," I whispered. Vesper's eyes stayed cool. "Or to protect you," she corrected. My hands trembled around the tablet. I hated that the possibility made my chest ache. Vesper leaned close. "Here's the truth you don't want," she said. "Selene made a choice," she added, "and she chose the path that made you disappear quietly. Quietly, safely, conveniently." I swallowed the pain down and turned it into something sharper. "What do I do?" I asked. Vesper's mouth curved. "You make them beg," she said. That night, Vesper gave me a room with a real window, still sealed, but with a view of the city lights. She gave me a laptop without internet, a controlled terminal with access to curated files, and a promise. "If you play it right," she said, "you walk out free." "And you?" I asked. Vesper's eyes glittered. "I walk out holding the leash to both packs," she said. I should have been disgusted. Instead, I respected the honesty. Over the next day, I read until my eyes burned. Octavia's payments, board members bribed, a list of removable liabilities with names and notes. Mine was there. Omega. Unbonded. Involved with CEO. Remove before vote. I stared at it until my stomach stopped turning and became stone. So it was never just humiliation. It was a plan. The public rejection wasn't only performance. It was the cover for my disappearance. I built my revenge with the same meticulous focus I used for my studies. Step 1, proof. Step 2, leverage. Step 3, timing. Because revenge without timing is just noise. Vesper came to me on the third day with a new clip. Selene, in a private elevator, slamming her fist into the wall, eyes red. Marin beside her, pale. Even without audio, Selene's mouth shaped my name. Mira. Again. 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 My throat tightened. Vesper watched me. "She's unraveling," Vesper said. "Good," I replied, and my voice didn't crack, which surprised me. Vesper's eyes narrowed with amusement. "You're lying," she said. I met her gaze. "I can miss her and still destroy what she did," I said. Vesper's smile turned approving. "That's the difference between love and weakness," she murmured. On the fourth day, Vesper unlocked the one thing she'd kept from me, my phone. She tossed it onto the table like bait. It buzzed immediately. 37 missed calls. Selene. Marin. Unknown numbers. My chest constricted. Vesper leaned in the doorway, watching. "Aren't you going to answer?" she asked. I stared at Selene's name flashing on the screen, as if it could burn through my skin. My thumb hovered. Then I opened the messages instead. Selene. "Mira, please." Selene. "Where are you?" Selene. "I did what I had to do." Selene. "I'm sorry." Selene. I'm coming. Selene, don't be scared. The last one arrived 1 minute ago. Selene, I found Crow's scent near the docks. My stomach dropped. The docks, near Vesper's territory. She's close. Vesper tilted her head. She's tracking you, she said, even through neutralizers. My Omega instincts flared, a traitorous pull toward the Alpha who had once been home. I clenched my jaw. She'll come here, I said. Vesper smiled. That's the point, she replied. My pulse spiked. You planned this, I accused. Vesper's eyes gleamed. I planned for your Alpha to do what Alphas do when they're desperate, she said. I planned for war. I swallowed hard. And if she comes? I asked. Vesper stepped closer, voice low. Then you choose, she said. Do you crawl back? She added. Or do you make her kneel? My hands shook. I hated Vesper. I hated that she understood my world so well. I looked at Selene's last message again. Don't be scared. A laugh slipped out of me, bitter and small. I wasn't scared. I was furious. I typed one message with steady fingers. To Selene, meet me at the Pack Summit tonight. No guards, no board, no lies. If you want me back, earn it. Then I turned my phone off. Vesper watched me, impressed. You just baited a female Alpha, she murmured. I just set a boundary, I said. Vesper's smile widened. Same thing, she replied. The Pack Summit was not a party. It was a tribunal dressed in silk. Every major corporate pack in the city attended because business was just dominance with paperwork. Vesper dressed me in black, simple, elegant, and unmistakably Omega without looking fragile. A high collar to hide my throat, a fitted jacket to hold my posture straight. No scent jewelry, no mark, just me. We arrived in 2 cars, surrounded by Crow security. Vesper didn't hold my hand. She didn't need to. Her ownership of the scene was a force field. The summit hall glowed with chandeliers and power. Betas whispered. Alphas watched. Omegas stayed close to their packs, eyes lowered, trained to be quiet. I lifted my chin anyway. The moment we entered, the room shifted. Because I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be removed. Vesper led me to the front row, a seat reserved, a message. Octavia Vale stood on the stage near the podium, smiling like she'd already won. Board members sat behind her, stiff and satisfied. Marin stood at the side, face pale. And then the back doors opened. Selene walked in. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her suit was wrinkled at the shoulders, her hair half-pinned, eyes wild with the desperation I'd never seen in her. She scanned the room like a predator. Then she saw me. Her entire body stilled. The Alpha in her surged forward, scent flaring through the room in a wave that made lesser Alphas bristle. My Omega instincts responded before my pride could stop it. My skin warmed, my throat ached. My heart did something stupid. Selene started toward me. Crow security moved, blocking the aisle. Vesper didn't rise. She simply lifted one finger. A warning. Selene stopped at the barrier, breathing hard. Mira, she said, and my name sounded wrecked in her mouth. I didn't stand. I didn't run. I looked at her the way she'd looked at me in that hallway. Controlled. Cold. Selene's eyes flicked over me as if checking for bruises, for marks, for ownership she feared. You're okay, she whispered. I'm alive, I corrected. Pain flashed across her face. She swallowed. Please, she said, and it was one word that held everything she'd refused to say on the 42nd floor. The summit began with Octavia's voice booming through the hall. Tonight, she announced, we finalized the Crow partnership. A ripple of approval moved through board members. Vesper leaned toward me. Watch this, she whispered. Octavia continued, and we demonstrate pack stability by removing compromised elements. Her gaze swept the crowd, landing on Selene like a leash. Selene Vale, Octavia said, step forward. Selene's jaw clenched. She moved to the front with controlled fury, but her eyes kept snapping back to me like she couldn't stop. Octavia lifted a folder. We present the transfer of the unbonded Omega, she said, as proof of compliance. My stomach clenched. Selene's head snapped up. No, she said, voice low. Octavia smiled wider. You already signed, Octavia replied. Selene's fists tightened. The hall held its breath. This was the public stage where Selene could either submit or burn. Vesper's hand touched my shoulder lightly, almost gentle. Your moment, she murmured. I stood. The sound of my chair sliding back was loud in the hush. Every head turned. Octavia's smile faltered. What is this? She demanded. I walked into the aisle, heart hammering, posture straight. Selene's eyes locked on me, wide and desperate. Mira, she whispered again, like prayer. I stopped in front of the stage, looking up at Octavia Vale. My name is Mira Halden, I said into the microphone as Vesper's tech quietly activated it. A murmur rippled. Octavia's face tightened. You were removed, she snapped. I was kidnapped, I corrected, and the word hit the room like a slap. Gasps, whispers. Selene flinched, as if stabbed. Octavia lifted her chin. Don't be dramatic, she said. I turned slightly and faced the crowd. 4 days ago, I said, I was publicly labeled a liability and no one. Selene's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. I continued anyway. Then mercenaries tried to grab me in the Vale lobby, I said. Octavia's eyes narrowed. That's a lie, she barked. I lifted the tablet Vesper gave me and pressed play on the summit screens. Security footage filled the walls. The mercenaries in the lobby. Their reach. Vesper stepping in. The panic. The truth. The hall erupted into sound. Octavia's smile vanished entirely. Selene stared at the screen, face turning lethal. I switched to the financial transfer sheet. Sterling Private Security, consulting payments. Octavia's account signatures. A board member behind her went pale. Octavia's voice rose. This is treason, she snarled. It's evidence, I said calmly. Then I turned to Selene. This part hurt worse than the rest. Tell them why you signed, I said. Selene's mouth opened. No sound came out. Her eyes shone with agony. Octavia leaned toward her, voice low and poisonous. Don't, she warned. Selene's shoulders shook once. Then she stepped forward, and the alpha in her finally snapped. I signed because my mother told me she'd have Mira taken permanently, Selene said, voice shaking with rage. I signed because she said she'd ruin her scholarship records and blacklist her from every PAC-owned firm, she added. I signed because I thought disappearing her under Crow protection was safer than letting my mother's hired wolves drag her into a van. The room exploded. Octavia's face contorted. "You ungrateful!" Selene cut her off. "You hired mercenaries," Selene snarled. "You endangered an Omega in my building," she added. "And you used my signature like a chain." Octavia lifted her hand as if to strike her, right there on the stage in front of everyone. Selene didn't flinch. She caught her mother's wrist, midair. A collective gasp rose. "You will not touch her," Selene said, and her voice dropped, lethal and absolute. "And you will not touch Mira, ever again." Octavia shook in her grip, eyes bright with hatred. "You chose an Omega over your pack," Octavia hissed. Selene's eyes flicked to me. For 1 second, everything in her softened. "I chose a person," Selene said, "because you forgot we're supposed to protect, not trade." A board member stood abruptly. "This summit is compromised," she shouted. Vesper's security moved like a wall. Vesper's voice carried from the front row, smooth as a blade. "Sit," she said, and the board member sat like the command had a collar attached. Octavia's breath came fast. "You think you've won," she spat at me. I stepped closer to the microphone. "I haven't even started," I said. Then I played the final clip. Audio this time. Octavia on a call. Voice unmistakable. "Make it look like a rival extraction," she said. "And when she's gone, Selena will stop being distracted," she added. "Omegas come and go." Silence swallowed the room. Selena's face went white with horror. Octavia's eyes widened, then narrowed into a glare so sharp it could cut bone. Vesper stood at last, hands clasped behind her back like a queen addressing a court. "Crowpack will not be used as your cover story," Vesper said coolly. "This partnership is null." Octavia's lips trembled. "You can't," she hissed. Vesper smiled. "I can," she replied. The summit devolved into chaos. Alphas argued, betas shouted, Omegas clung to their partners, eyes wide. Security converged. Octavia tried to flee. Crow guards intercepted her at the aisle. Selene stepped off the stage and strode straight toward me, ignoring everyone. My heart pounded. My Omega instincts surged, traitorous and aching. Selene stopped inches away, eyes bright with pain. "I'm sorry," she said, voice breaking. I stared at her, letting the memory of her words slice through me again. Liability. No one. Selene flinched, as if she heard them too. "I thought I could fix it fast," she whispered. "You thought you could decide for me," I said quietly. Selene's jaw tightened. "Yes," she admitted, "and I was wrong." A tremor ran through my hands. I hated her. I loved her. I wanted to slap her and collapse into her arms at the same time. That's what made her dangerous. Vesper appeared at my side like a shadow. "Time," she said softly. Selene's eyes flicked to Vesper, pure alpha rage flaring. "You," Selene growled. Vesper didn't blink. "I kept her alive," Vesper replied. Selene's nostrils flared. "And you used her," Selene snapped. Vesper shrugged. "Everyone used her," she said, gaze sliding to Octavia being restrained. "I'm just the one who gave her the knife." Selene's eyes returned to me. "Mira," she whispered. "Come home." Home. The word hit like a bruise. I took a slow breath. I don't have a home in your tower, I said. Selene's face crumpled. You have me, she said, desperate. I shook my head once. You had me, I corrected. Selene swallowed hard, eyes shining. What do you want? She asked, a voice rough. I looked around at the summit hall, at the packs, at the power, at the way Omegas stayed quiet, because quiet keeps you safe. Then I looked back at Selene. I want you to say it, I said. Selene blinked. Say what? She whispered. I stepped closer, voice low enough that only she and Vesper could hear. Say I'm not a liability, I said. Selene's breath hitched. Say I'm not no one, I added. Selene's shoulders shook. You're not, she said instantly. Louder, I demanded. The words surprised even me. Selene's eyes widened. The hall was chaos, but there was a pocket of silence around us now, because alphas feel when another alpha is about to kneel. Selene drew in a breath that looked like it hurt. Then she turned slightly toward the room, voice carrying. Mira Halden is not a liability, Selene said, loud and clear. Heads turned. Mira Halden is not no one, she continued, voice shaking with fury and shame. She is the Omega I chose, Selene said, and I failed her. The room went still. Octavia screamed something, a furious animal sound, but it didn't matter. Selene faced me again, eyes wet. What else? She whispered. I stared at her throat, unmarked, clean, unclaimed. You promised daylight, I said softly. Selene's eyes flicked down. Then she did the one thing I never thought I'd see in public. Selene Vale lowered herself to one knee in the summit aisle, in front of rival packs, boards, and cameras. A female alpha kneeling is not romance. It is surrender. It is war ending. My heart clenched so hard it hurt. Mira, Selene said, voice breaking. I am asking, she added, not ordering. She lifted her hands, palms up, offering. Let me earn you back, she whispered. The hall held its breath. Even Vesper looked intrigued. I stared down at Selene on her knee, the alpha who once told me I was no one, to save me from worse. I believed she did it to protect me. I also believed she did it because she thought she could handle my life like a file she could relocate. Both could be true. That was the tragedy. I took a slow step back. Selene's hands trembled. Mira, she choked. Please. I looked at Vesper, whose expression was unreadable. You got what you wanted, I said to her quietly. Vesper's smile was faint. I got a show, she replied. I turned back to Selene. Stand up, I said. Selene flinched, then rose slowly, eyes never leaving mine. I took a breath. I'm not going back to your tower tonight, I said. Selene's face crumpled. Pain flashed like lightning. But, I added, and the word was sharp enough to cut, I'm not going back to being quiet either. Selene swallowed hard. What does that mean? She whispered. It means, I said, voice steady. You will resign your voting proxy, I continued. You will remove Octavia from every board seat you can legally remove her from, I added. And you will publish the truth without hiding behind corporate language. Selene nodded once, fierce. I will, she said. And it means, I continued, you will claim me only if I choose it, I said. Not because your world is on fire and you need to hold something. Selene's eyes shone. I understand, she whispered. I stared at her for a long second. Then I did the hardest thing. I turned away. Vesper's hand touched my elbow lightly, guiding me toward the exit. Selene's breath hitched behind me. Mira, she called, voice cracking. Don't leave me like this. I stopped at the doorway without turning around. I didn't leave you, I said quietly. I left the version of you who could say I was no one and expect me to wait at home. The doors opened. Cold night air hit my face like a baptism. Camera flashes sparked outside, summoned by leaks and power. Vesper's car waited at the curb. I stepped toward it, heart pounding, hands steady. Behind me, Selene's voice rose, raw and desperate. Mira, she called again, louder. Tell me where to go. I turned then, just enough to meet her eyes across the distance. She looked wrecked, and something in me softened against my will. You can't follow my scent anymore, I said, because Vesper's neutralizers had done their job. Selene's breath hitched. Then how? She whispered. I held her gaze. By choice, I said. Then I got into the car. The door shut. The engine purred. As we pulled away, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the one Vesper returned to me as a final gift. One new message from Selene. No subject, just a voice note. I didn't play it. Not yet. Because the last time I let her voice into my bones, it made me stay when I should have run. Vesper watched me from the seat beside me, eyes glinting in the streetlights. You're going to make her chase you, she said. I'm going to make her change, I corrected. Vesper smiled slowly. And if she doesn't? She asked. I looked out at the city, at the lights, at the freedom that tasted like fear. Then she'll learn what it feels like, I said, to call and hear nothing back. My phone buzzed again. Another voice note, then another, then a text, short and shaking even through the screen. Selene. I'm coming anyway. My throat tightened. Vesper leaned closer, amused. She's already breaking your rules, she murmured. I stared at the message, pulse racing, because part of me wanted her to. Then a final notification appeared, and my blood went cold. Unknown number. A single photo. A close-up of my apartment door from my old neighborhood. The one Selene never visited because it was unsafe. Below it, one sentence. We know where you ran, little Omega. I lifted my gaze to the dark road ahead, heart pounding because the war was not over. It was just beginning.